Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to another live stream. This one is called IPSA Kind of Magic, and it celebrates all things independent personal associate search. I'll try it again. Independent Personal Search Association. It's a group of people who, up and down the country, chaired currently by Hamish McClay. We've been only talking to the top table recently about what the hell's going on, but we talk about all aspects of searches and also why searches take place. And in this particular day, we're talking about why sometimes a second search is required. But to start us off, as per usual, Hamish McClay.
Well, glorious sunshine today. I hope it doesn't turn into what it did yesterday with the rain and all the rest of it. And probably hard to think that 3 weeks' time, it will actually be the 24th of December.
Good Lord.
So what we need to do in a fortnight's time is make sure we get an awful lot of IPSA members on so we can have a Christmas gathering in a fortnight.
Excellent.
Any IPSA members who are available. So let us do that. However, let us speak about this sort of time of year. It can sometimes be panic time for an awful lot of people who want to get into properties before Christmas. A little bit late to start now, although it has been done. What we're speaking about today is the occasional need for a research, if you like. The search needs to be carried out on a second occasion for whatever reason. Now, the majority of people, but particularly our IPSA members, are fully aware of that we have a six month frame. In fact, we need to look at it, and it makes common sense anyway. An MOT covers you for exactly that time period of when the vehicle goes in.
Right.
If a day later your brakes fail, it's tough. The MOT was carried out on that very day. The reason I say that, because I had a situation some years ago where my brakes failed within a week of my MOT test. And they actually did me for driving a car in a dangerous condition, which was interesting. And there we go. However, the MOT on your property is not quite the same. However, it does mean exactly the same thing. Now, what is important, several things can happen. First of all, it is only considered to be acceptable by a large number of people, the money lenders, solicitors, mortgage brokers. I mean, all sorts of different sort of people will say, if it's outside of that 6 month time frame, you need another one anyway. We're not speaking about that because other occasions bring about the need for that repeated search. And it can be all sorts of things. And at this particular moment in time, with the government we have at this moment in time as well, there can be certain things. For example, they're trying to accelerate planning. So some planning is going quicker than it would normally go through. And in actual fact, they're giving planning consent on items which previously there wouldn't be any consent on. So in actual fact, in 3 months, something can change remarkably. The field outside of you could have planning permission for 750 houses if you're not looking. And it can change. And there's no comeback because if you like that original search that was perfectly adequate at the time it went out.
But could it be that the initial search was almost feeling your way, and then as other things come to life, you do a further search to dig deeper? Would that be the case? Or
you can do, because you can expand the search, and in actual fact, if somebody is safety conscious, if you're buying for a particular reason, for example, I mean, I was just sort of speaking about that field outside. If you're buying, hey, this is my retirement home, I'm buying it because it's safely in the countryside here, you might want to make doubly sure. Particularly if you're paying that little bit more money, it doesn't do you any harm to get a second search done. It's not going to cost you a busting lot of money. And in fact, some deals can be sort of built into it. And speaking to a member from IPSA, there's a very, very good chance you could actually sort of negotiate the deal to get that done a second time. But it's a matter of choice to a certain extent to get it completed under sort of 6 months. But there are various other reasons as well, and I'm sure Mahesh there can actually bring a few ideas to light when he can think of his experiences over the last 30 years or so.
Oh, good Lord.
working with local searches.
Mahesh, welcome to the show as ever. Now, as Hamish has said, normally the first search, because of the way in which you guys work at IPSA, which is to say effectively filter it and manicure the results, so you're not saying tons of rubbish, you're actually seeing the absolute focused data. Normally one search would be enough, but there must be lots of occasions where a second search is required.
I think, yes, quite often sort of a second search is needed. Obviously, sort of you'll get the situation where, as Hamish pointed out, sort of obviously planning applications can go through. You've got competent person scheme notices, for example, electrical notices, fencer registrations. The council are registering all of these notices on a day-to-day basis. If, for example, you decide, okay, you've basically got your property ready for marketing. You've done all the bits and pieces. You've had some extra works done on your property. They've been sort of tested and checked and whatever else by the relevant authorities, and the notices have gone out to the individual companies, for example, Gas Safe and Fence or whatever else. They'll send out the notices to the council. You might then, after day one, decide to put the property on the market. You're in a very good area. Properties get sold within a day or two. So the estate agents are going through the process of getting everything done. Solicitors are getting the searches and already out there. You'll get the situation where you've done the local search, and then the solicitor will come back and say, well, we've been told by the seller that there's a fence and notification on this property, which you haven't picked up. Oh, right. Okay. So, well, it might be that the fact that the council haven't registered it. You would look at that maybe in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and the notice is there.
Right.
And then you'll suddenly find that, okay, yes, you do need to update your local search. It might be the situation which we find quite often especially in rural areas, not so much in the urban area, but in the rural areas, you'll get a property. The solicitor will go to the seller and get the initial title documents and whatever else. You'll then suddenly find that they've got a garage somewhere which they forgot to tell you about, and so you've got to do an extra search on this bit of garage, which is included in the title, but obviously it's got a separate title completely to the property, which seems unusual. Why would you have a garage which has got a separate title? But that might have been bought at a later date. So you've got situations there where an extra search is needed. I've got a situation at the moment where my boys are trying to buy a property in Grangetown. The council built the property in the 80s, and then they've got a small square piece of land in front of the property, which is registered separately and which is owned by the council. Now, we didn't realize it at the time. This has obviously come up during the searches, and because I've done the searches for my boys anyway, I've double-checked this extra bit of land to make sure there's no other infringements on there, or there's no other notices and whatever else which could impact the sale. You've had a second search done within the space of a month or so of doing the first one. So
right,
there are many instances where you would need a second one.
So the process that you go through when you do the first one, does that often rise up further questions that could encourage you to get a second one? Like,
yes, I think sort of generally you would look at it and you would say there could be an extra bit of land. You've got a triangular bit of land, for example, or property. You've got extra bits of land registered at land registry, which they just have it registered as land adjacent to or land to the rear of. It might not even be registered on the land registry system under your address. So it might be on the neighboring property, but that bit of land may well have been sold to that person and they've just forgot to mention to their solicitor, right, okay, we've got an extra bit of land here, which we're selling on as well, which has got a separate title. So there's many instances where you would need one within the 6 month period. But I think most IPSA agents will do their second search free of charge. I know for my solicitor clients, they get their, it's basically just a quick check of the records. You are still doing a full search, but it's a lot quicker because you've got half the information there already.
But the fact that the searches last, Hamish, 6 months, is it? From that's the kind of warranty. It's like the warranty period.
It rather depends. Certain people will. The lenders can have a big influence. And we've got a situation at the moment. There's one of the clients that we have that wasn't the best of clients, I have to admit. In the first place, has decided that they actually sort of we want to actually sort of also have a plan. We want the search carried out. It's a little bit like Mahesh was saying on that second bit of land, because actually that second bit of land we bought from our neighbour, but it's not actually showing up on the land registry plan at the moment.
Right.
Being owned by us. It's still being owned by the owner. So we need to carry out a second search, and that bit of that bit of land, which is technically, if you like, under the ownership of the neighbour. So there are a number of situations, and for example, you look around locally where we are in Bicester. If you take a trip about sort of 50 yards down the road, you come to one of the main roads which heads from Bicester to Aylesbury, which used to be quite an important one because it's the A41 out of London.
One of the arterial routes, yeah.
Arterial routes. It used to go right the way up to the Midlands. Now, what they're contemplating, and it's not far away from the decision being made, because of the popularity of Bicester Village, it's been decided, well, trains take precedence over cars. So they're proposing to put down a permanent crossing there. When I say a crossing, it's a crossing only by the train. No vehicles will be allowed to get there. So if you're going to buy a house just over that crossing, you've got a 2-mile detour to get to that particular
Oh,
spot.
my Lord.
Now, this is why it's important, of course, you're working with a local person that is aware of what's going on in their sort of locality, because they are aware of such things going on. And they turn around, look, we've got to keep an eye on this. It's a farcical scenario because it shouldn't be, because you can just split the whole of the town in half. But what we've got is a government as well, which is trying to push through things very, very quickly. And whereas what would happen, something would be investigated, and as a consequence of the investigation carried out by the council, they say, no, we're opposing this planning permission. It's not allowed. Pick the phone up, speak to the government. Oh, hang on. We've got to meet our target for our 1.5 million, haven't we? Whoa. Plans go straight through. So it's a matter of keeping your eye on. And there's a sort of, Mahesh sort of said, certain instances come out from that original search that may want you to actually look that little step further. It could be a boundary.
Right.
I'm 100% sure of exactly what's going on the boundary, and something might come to light, because you cannot guarantee either land registry's boundary. Because it's on the plan, it doesn't necessarily mean that's precisely where it is. So there's a number of different aspects that, if we're working for the interest of the client, which we are, and sometimes a solicitor won't be a local solicitor. So we are the ones that actually are keeping the solicitor informed of exactly what is sort of going on.
I would suppose one of the great benefits of working with an IPSA member is you all guys follow that same ethos, which is getting the right relevant information, and if it isn't right, making sure that it is. I mean, I know it sounds like an obvious thing, but I know of a lot of institutions, what might be referred to as factory conveyancers, who will grab the information, throw it at you, and expect you to work out what's relevant and what's not. Mahesh, you've been doing this for a number of years. Have you seen a change, an increase in the number of times where people are requiring extra searches on the back of the original one?
Not so much. I think it's more a case of the solicitors being aware of the fact that there is a second search available, and
Right.
obviously, depending on who you go to, they will do it for free of charge or whatever else. I think the biggest thing at the moment, I know with my local authority, Cardiff Council, they, and Hamish will tell you, sort of obviously with traffic schemes, with highway schemes not so much, because they are planned quite well in advance. Traffic schemes, I can categorically tell you with Cardiff, you may look on their system on Monday, and there won't be a traffic scheme for a particular roadway on their system. By the end of the weekend, there may well be a notice on your street or a nearby street for whatever. There might be a disabled parking spot going up nearby. There might be some minor roadworks going through, but it changes on a day-to-day basis. So I'll look at their records, and they'll show me nothing. By the time that I come to complete the search, there might be an entry on this. So it's an ever-changing process. I always say to my clients, once you're getting ready to complete, send me a quick notification. I'll have a look at it, make sure there's no changes. If there are changes, I'll let you know, and we can go through that process once again. But it's a difficult one to sort of negotiate, because you could say, well, you'll send a search to the clients on the Monday. On the Tuesday, there might be a change, and the clients are already ready to complete. So it's a difficult one.
No, it sounds like it is a movable feast, to quote Hemingway. Hamish, would you care to summarize and take us home?
Right. I mean, the thing we just had to Mahesh just before we actually sort of pull the whole thing together, when we actually look at this scenario, that what goes on in some of these towns now, they're trying to follow this particular idea, this route of this, the 15-minute cities. And they're doing peculiar things about blocking up roadways, which when you first looked, they could be blocked up. And another very, very popular one, because they are speaking about it in Bicester. It hasn't happened. At 20 miles an hour, just about everywhere within residential areas. Now, in some, the absurdity of this is twofold. First, the majority of them, you can't go more than 20 miles an hour anyway. It's blocked with too many vehicles. The other one, how the heck are you going to point? How the heck are you actually going to sort of cover this in terms of cameras or whatever? There's no way that you're actually going to be able to sort of, in law, apply it. So why go to the trouble of it, putting all the signs up, inconveniencing anybody, just because of that? So sometimes aspects of that will actually sort of come up. And also another thing, the road outside, they said, double yellow lines all the way along Victoria Road. They didn't say which side. They were already double yellow lines along the road. So it ended up not being any at all. And I'm thinking, well, what was all that about? But that second search, it won't necessarily. The trouble is, not all of the information is available in the searches. So there's a twofold challenge. But this is going back to the sort of locality. But there is good cause, and I think it's probably an indication at this particular moment in time, anybody that is going to buy, because of the way the government is working and trying to keep up to speed, because unfortunately they keep putting spanners in their own works. They built this delightful looking mechanism, then they stuff a spanner in it to prevent the engine from running.
It's almost like two sides aren't talking to each other.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the budget did exactly that in terms of finance, never mind anything else. But unfortunately, this is happening right the way through, as a consequence of which new planning come up so quickly. And one other one we actually sort of forgot. Sometimes you will find when you do your search, building control hasn't been put in. One of the ones we were doing, the guy said, oh, crikey, I forgot to get in touch with building control. It's been done for 5 years now, but I never got back to them.
Oh dear.
I best get that done before we actually sort of proceed. So I'll do that. Can you just carry out a search in a couple of weeks, because I've asked them if they can push it through. So there are cases, but again, it does reinforce the very good reason why speaking to somebody locally who's actually carrying out the work on your behalf to do the research work is by far the best way forward.
It reinforces actually what we've often said, Hamish, which is make sure you're working with people who have focused local knowledge, are experts in their own community, will recognize when things have changed and realize that you don't have a tree order on a tree that is a mile and a half away from you because it happened, but you don't just take everything on prima facie value. You gather it together, you rework it, and you focus it in so that it provides what you need to know, not just everything. Thank you once again, Hamish. You've been, as ever, a brilliant host. And Mahesh, thank you so much bringing your years of experience to this. And to all of you out there, I'm echoing what Hamish said before. It's coming up to the end of the year. We'd very much like to have here some few stories, interact with a few more IPSA members so that we can properly send off the year in style. But until next week, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and look after that mental health. Until next week, bye-bye.